Hey everyone, welcome to Hellfest. What's up everyone? Welcome to the horror show and welcome to Fest Part 1. That's right. What is Fest? Well, let me explain. Apparently, this year is really hot for blank fest movies. This weekend in particular, because Hellfest has just hit the theaters, and I checked in, and a movie called Bloodfest was available as well, and then there was another fest movie, American Fright Fest. So all three of these movies came out this year now, and they all have very similar premises. And so this one, I'm going to talk about the brand new Hellfest. I'm going to start off, I just went and saw it. I literally got home from the theater about 20 minutes ago, and here I am recording my thoughts. Now, I'm going to do this like I do all of our normal reviews. I'm going to talk about the overall thoughts, and I'll talk about the story, the acting, the effects, everything else in turn. And yeah, I'm going to do the same with Bloodfest and American Fright Fest. And then at the end, I'm going to do a video comparing and contrasting all three since they're so similar. But this one is the sort of, I guess you could say, more big budget, although it didn't look that much more big budget than Bloodfest, which was just straight to VOD. This one is available in the theaters right now. It just dropped in the theaters, so I had to go pay for a ticket, and I did so happily because we did trailer reactions to both, and I was into the idea of both. So unfortunately, this one did not make me as happy as I was hoping it would. Believe it or not, after having already watched Bloodfest, I had this inevitable comparison to make, which was going to happen one way or the other, no matter which one I watched first. So I was kind of comparing it a little bit to Bloodfest, but I tried to take it as its own thing. And as its own thing, it is an execution of an idea that we haven't seen this exact storyline, but we have seen aspects of all of the things that built into this storyline before. So unfortunately, it did not feel altogether unique. Basically, my overall thoughts though are, it was shot well, competently enough. I did like the set design and the set dress because it's set entirely in sort of a Halloween Horror Nights-esque park, you know, with a bunch of different scare zones, if you will, and then a bunch of different actual haunted houses within the big park. And so this one did that well, but other than that, the characters were characters we've seen do these things before in hundreds of movies at this point. I mean, the character dynamics that are in this film are character dynamics we've seen hundreds of times. And it didn't work to its favor. I guess the only way it could is if you really attached yourself to these characters, and I'll get to that. So overall, I guess you could say I was disappointed with the movie. There were things to appreciate, but it was overall a really bland movie that we've seen all of the aspects of in different iterations before. Like, we might have only seen a version of this scene in one movie, and then a version of this scene in a different movie. It wasn't like a straight sort of imitation or rip-off of anything before, but it definitely lifted. It might not have lifted per se, like the writers might not have realized they were lifting, but it is a very, 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 very tropey movie. And it does not work to its favor, unfortunately, for the most part. So the story is basically, we follow this, girl next door, of course, as usual. She's come home from college or somewhere. They don't even really, if they specified where, it went by so fast that it didn't leave an impact. But the point is that she ran or something. Like, she was around during grade school, and then she disappeared during college, and now she's back. And her best friend, let me give you some names for the actresses and stuff like that. So we are following Natalie, who is played by Amy Forsyth. The movie is directed by Gregory Plotkin. Let me mention that. I got to give credit where credit's due. But yes, we are following Natalie, who is played by Amy Forsyth, and she basically comes home and wants to meet up with her friend Brooke, who's played by Rain Edwards. And, it's typical sort of young millennial college girl sort of interaction. And then also, though, there's Taylor, who is played by Bex Taylor Klaus, who is actually one of the only two interesting things about the recent Scream TV series reboot. Both season 1 and 2, she played sort of the female Randy character. There was a male version of Randy, but they did essentially two kind of Randys. And she was the female one, and she was pretty much the most entertaining person on the whole show. So I was happy to see her appear in this. And she definitely did a good job. She was one of the most fun to watch. But basically, it's this trio of friends that decide to go to Hellfest. And they're going because Brooke and Taylor's boyfriends are already planning to go. And then Natalie is going to be hanging out with another boy, Gavin. He is, I guess, into her, and she is into him, but they never quite linked up or whatever, blah, blah. Nothing that we haven't seen before, right? So they all go to Hellfest. And basically there is a setup. There's an opening scene where you find out there's an incident where a girl is killed inside of a haunted house and placed inside as a part of it. And you find out later that she wasn't discovered for a little while. Basically this killer happens into Hellfest and goes to try and wreak some havoc in the Hellfest. And basically what he does is he fixates on a particular girl and follows her for pretty much the whole night and just kind of terrorizes her and her friends. And that's what happens to Natalie, Brooke, and Taylor and their respective boyfriends or would-be boyfriends, as it were. And basically this guy, follows them all night and stuff starts to happen. People start to pass on, as it were. And that's the story. Not terribly unique, obviously, but it is fun to see someone stalk people inside of a haunted house. I know there have been more straight-to-DVD movies that have done this before. Not many in the big budget arena. There have been shades of this in movies past, like maybe House of a Thousand Corpses when they're trying to look at an exhibition on the side of the road and it goes bad. But this is people going to essentially Halloween Horror Nights, and the movie is what if there was an actual creepy, stalky killer at Halloween Horror Nights and they fixated on you and your friends. So it's not a bad premise per se, but unfortunately it plays out so stereotypically. I had to turn off the AC, which is why I'm constantly wiping sweat, guys, so forgive that. But yeah, basically the movie plays out in a very stereotypical, it's not Happy Death Day because that had a really clever gimmick, but it's that sort of thing. It plays out in ways that we've seen numerous times. Characters make stupid decisions and separate themselves, or are separated through ridiculous means, and no one makes the right choices. Literally, one of the worst horror tropes there are happens in this movie when you should be running for the exit, but instead you go into one of the haunted houses to try and escape danger. Why? Why do you do that? So yeah, it's got that kind of stuff going on. So there are so many times that, forgive me guys, I'm going to take off my mask, that's probably not helping. And just the flat, stupid decisions these characters are making, and it's like, why? Why are you guys... It's one of those things, and it's actually funny. I made a note on my phone. I made sure to sit aside so I can make some notes where I needed to. And there was a note where it's like, why are these characters walking through all of these places where there's literally weapons everywhere you could take and use, or would be weapons, even if they're fake? But apparently this place adorns their props with like real axes. So why not take one and, prepare yourself? And it's so funny because as I finished writing this note, which is in the second half of the third act, saying, why don't any of these characters pick up weapons or pick up things to use as weapons? They actually did just that. And so I'm like, okay, finally they do something like that. But it ends up being a very lackluster experience because the story is very meh. So you're kind of just like waiting, and you're like, okay, this person just went off, they're gonna die. This person just went off, they're gonna die. There's not much beyond the set dress and the, you know, the some of the extras. There's just not that much effort put into the actual story crafting and character crafting of this film, unfortunately. It's going to be interesting to compare this to the other ones once I finish all three. But already between the two that I've seen, there's a lot of big comparisons that are going to make big differences depending on the kind of person you like. Or you are, depending on the kind of person you are and the kind of horror film you like. I kind of combine them in my head there. But yeah, so this one is more straight slasher, but it doesn't, even though it's set at a haunted house or, you know, a Halloween Horror Nights kind of thing, the set dress is great and stuff, but it's not utilized to the extent that it could be. I don't want to say much more than that, other than you have a pretty awesome place that you could set some pretty cool set pieces, and they just don't go for it. It devolves into typical Scream slasher territory at one point, and it's not. Here's the big, well, I'll talk about the differences in the difference video, but this one is not a very self-aware movie, I don't feel like. It is trying to be a Scream or an urban legend or something set at Halloween Horror Nights. And I think it's just so reminiscent of things we've seen before and probably done better that it just doesn't really hold its own for me. I mean, there might be people that love it that just haven't seen as much horror as I have. They're like, yeah, this was great, you know. Maybe so for you guys, but I don't know, man. It's stuff I've seen before everywhere, and I'm debating whether or not I want to do a spoiler review, because I could read some of my direct comments and why people did this or that or this or that, and I might probably do that. But yeah, guys, this was not good. I wasn't a big fan of this. Okay, so it was rated R. Definitely had to be rated R. I think there was only like one kill that I was kind of like, okay, at least you took that a little bit further than we've seen before. But yeah, otherwise, again, nothing that we really haven't seen before and done sort of better or more competently or whatever. This just wasn't that creative as far as what, again, the setting is creative, but the things they did within the setting were not. That's the problem I have. Like, it was the movie was fighting with itself almost. It like wanted to do cool stuff, and it surrounded the characters with cool stuff, but the characters wouldn't do cool things. I don't know. That's my assessment. Let's see. I do think that actually, I feel like the music stood out more in the other movie too so far. So the music in this was pretty much standard fare. Nothing that really, you know, particularly drew me in or anything like that. I did like some of the sound design. When you were walking with the killer, they would drown out sort of the rest of the sound, and all you would hear would be his heavy footsteps. And I thought that was effective. I did like that. Like, I'm going to give credit where credit's due as I think of them, but there just wasn't that much. But I did like that. However, there's something like he has a mask, and then, you know, you find out that it's not necessarily a wholly unique mask, but it kind of, it undermines certain things that are done later on. It's just weird. They make weird decisions. I'm not spoiling anything, trust me, but they do go for a look with this character, and it's just, I don't know. It didn't really do it for me. It honestly looked like a much more deteriorated version of the TV Scream mask. It actually was formed very, very, very similarly, but it was colored way, way different, obviously. So yeah, the mask wasn't altogether unique, so the killer's look wasn't really anything that stood out to me, other than it was just kind of, I mean, the mask could literally just be, it's like, it's just like, that's all it is. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say too much, but when you see it, you'll see that it's just like, I don't know how better to explain it. So, anyway, guys, I'm going to try and cut it there for the non-spoiler section of this review. But yeah, I guess if you, I think the younger people are going to like this more than the people my age in their 30s and stuff like that, 30s or beyond, because it's nothing new to us, but it might be somewhat new to some of the younger kids. And it's again, I'll say it's a very competently made movie. Very competently made. The effects are fun. The angles work. The acting is serviceable. Not great, but serviceable. And it's, it is what it is. It's just nothing that's unique in my eyes. But some of the younger people might not have seen that much, and so they might really, really like it. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen as far as the box office goes, because as I understand it, there wasn't much actual promotion off of the internet for this, or outside of the internet, I mean. I don't know how many people are even going to know this is in theaters right now. So I'll be interested to see what happens. But yeah, overall, guys, this is just a mediocre attempt. I don't know that I'll ever own this movie. I will say, though, that it's better than some of the really, really bad ones. It's not like Bye Bye Man level. I haven't even seen Slender Man, but from what I hear, it's not Slender Man level. But it isn't. It definitely isn't anything that's going to be like where you have to go and tell your friends you need to go see this. I guess that's as much as I can say. Yeah, I try and not do actual, we don't very often do grades or anything like that. Occasionally we will, but for this one, this is one that if you haven't seen a whole tremendous amount of horror, you might like this one. If you have seen a whole bunch, you're not going to see a lot that's done new here. But the set design, and if you like haunted houses in real life, you'll enjoy spending an entire movie in a giant park like Halloween Horror Nights. You will enjoy that, because there are lots of cool things between the parks, but it's all set design, and it's all sort of things they encounter just along the way, like characters. They have more unique characters than I've ever seen in a theme park, even Halloween Horror Nights, which we will, by the way, be doing live coverage of on October 13th, Saturday, October 13th. If you want to tune in, we'll be doing live coverage of Halloween Horror Nights. But yes, there's a lot of really cool characters that they walk by and interact with that are like scare, characters and stuff like that, meant to jump out at the people that are walking around Hellfest and stuff like that. So those are fun to see. Those are creative. I enjoyed seeing those, but the story they were all, surrounding just didn't do it for me, unfortunately. So I'd be tremendously interested to know what you guys thought of it. Obviously, film is subjective. I definitely know that, and I'm not trying to come off as like old man, like get off my lawn kind of stuff. It's stuff I've seen before and done better for the most part. So I would tremendously want to know your guys' opinion, though. So please let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in this, if you haven't watched it yet, or if you have watched it, what you thought. Keep it non-spoiler. I'll do a separate spoiler review real quick. But yeah, guys, thanks very much for watching. Thank you very much to our patrons for supporting the channel monetarily. We greatly appreciate it. If you choose to do so, you can take part in live streams. You can give us things to review or Let's Plays to do, or things like that. Let us please be your puppets by clicking that link in the description box down below. Thank you guys very much. I've been Cecil Laird, and remember, stay scared.